welcome to my studio. Yes, I'm going to talk about painting and drawing and what the difference is. And I hear all the time, oh, I can't paint because I can't draw a straight line. Well, you can use a ruler for that. Drawing has to be put in a painter's place. And there are 7 components to the two-dimensional surface expression. Composition, which is the design. Drawing, which then makes the design have some shapes. And from that time on, the painter doesn't draw anymore because he's working in gobs of light and dark, or gobs of color. He's working with a brush, which doesn't make a line. He's working with making edges. Instead, they're not lines. I mean, they're where one tone meets another. So we can get rid of our fear of drawing by painting and put drawing in its place. It's used primarily in the beginning of the picture, and you can learn how to draw. You can learn perspective, you can learn proportion, and you can learn structure. So let me show you how I employ those 3 elements of drawing in doing a picture. I did sketch this in just to make it a little easier. I know I'm so pressured by time. You see, this is a box. It's a little boxy thing. It's a canister that my first mother-in-law gave to me. It looks that prim, doesn't it? So when I do that box, I don't just do what I see, but I construct its bottom. I know, because I learned the principles of drawing, if I diagonal this, I'll get the middle, and that's where that's going to go. So it's a learned principle that makes this drawing more sensible. Now, because of perspective, this is lower than my eye level. This is lower than my eye level too, but not as much. So its shape is not going to be, you can make them parallel. They're not parallel. They're little getting squeezed together, but parallel at least is better than going like that in this. So line this up with this, line this up with this. Then I'm going to paint a lemon that has been peeled, very a la Dutch painter. Well, we have to realize that the lemon was once complete, but it's been chopped off. It's a roundish thing, so the chopped off part would be elliptical. Then the little skin comes off of it that way. Then it twists, so you just twist it. Then it twists again. And then this down here is the little top that fits in there. I'm going to put one in there just for fun. Okay? Oh, I'm going to have this on a tray. A tray that goes out of the picture there and out of the picture over here. Why, I don't know. I just felt like it. That's all you ever have to draw. To place it on the canvas and to sensibly construct it. From here on in, all the drawing will happen because of the painting process. And I want to make the outline. But I don't do it as an outline. I'm going to construct it according to each element that this canister is. Well, I know that it has a a little top that is very much the same shape as this. It has, they always do that, you know, repeat the design. So with a stroke that would take in the whole side plane of the little stopper, I painted it in. And I'm going to correct it down with the other side. I should have been sensible enough to put the very top on. Well, if this jumps out, it certainly casts a shadow on the thing underneath it. So I do that. And then this will show. Now, I'd like to get that line, or that edge. I don't start there. I start here, and then move it out to that. This has a rim, so I've painted it in as a rim. The light is sneaking over here, but then falling in shadow. Now, because this is a rim, I gotta mix more paint. Because this is a projecting rim, it would catch light on this side. Its thickness would then cast a shadow underneath it. Then this is light. Start in the middle. Come over and see if you can hit that line right. Come over and hit that line right. I must have dipped into some pink. Why not? I'll correct it. This is on the same plane as that. It's got to be darker. And so we see in planes rather than in lines. The lines happen to have to come between the planes. And when you did that, you say, you know, it doesn't look the way it really is. This looks a little bit more gradual, so maybe you can ruin the line a little bit and then make that come up to it. That's where your eye plays the important role. Roscoe, my wonderful teacher, said, Helen, if you know what you're doing, you can do it with a broomstick. But use a sable brush. It makes it easier. No one cares how much you suffer, you know. And sometimes just your thumb can just work out a solution to a problem that is giving you some trouble. I don't know whether any of you saw the series I did on my 13 colors, where I talk only of color. You notice I'm not talking about color now at all, because I figure you all bought my book, my 13 colors. Now my problem is basically how to manipulate your brush and your paints. An important thing to have is a brush that has a nice sharp edge. A fluffy edge just doesn't do the trick. Let me just greenerize that background on this side. Lighter, of course, because that's where the light is going. Isn't that nice? I get the dark against the light and the light against the dark. Nature is really your friend. If you read her right, all right, now another brush. You never can have enough brushes because you don't know what you're going to run into on that canvas. I'll just put this one back in here. And put the shadow on it from the one in front of it, shadow under it, and brighten it. I always save the brightest, lightest tone for last. I don't have to see the lemon. I just know that it's round, and I know how light strikes a round object. So now we have this cut part. And that's the skin. And then we have the meat part showing. Oh, a little bit too dark, but it is darker than you think. There. I'm going to cut that down a lot. And then put this here. This is the white again. Yes, there are times that you need a tiny brush. There's a nice tiny brush, because in the middle of this, you see these sections. And here we see it yellow again. So the brush draws the subject by massing in the planes. So much easier than trying to make a lemon look like a lemon by drawing it. You can make it by constructing it. But to construct it, you have to know it and know the principles of painting. Well, if there's a cast shadow on that lemon over here, see, if you're a student of tone value, you really have the secret of being able to paint. If there's a cast shadow here, there's got to be a cast shadow here. There's got to be a cast shadow here. To me, that doesn't look right. Maybe it's fatter. Yeah. Maybe it's not as long. Heavens, it's got its top knocked off, so I'll take it off from the bottom. Always keep yourself in a very optimistic frame of mind. If you say you can't do it, you can't do it. If you say, I can do it, you can do it. Very important to be, it's just you have to be critical about what you're doing at the time, but overall you have to really be a cockeyed optimist to be a painter. Because you're making something. You're not destroying something, you're making it. And so you have to keep your enthusiasm up. People say, oh, Helen, you're a perfectionist. I said, I am not a perfectionist. Perfectionists are hiding out. They don't do anything because I can't make it perfect, I won't do it at all. It reminds me of a story. This man had two sons. One was such an optimist, and the other one was so pessimistic. He was such a pessimist that his toys were the wrong color, his books didn't come out right, he was a critic of everything. His optimist said everything was wonderful. Just, he was so happy, and he thought, well, anything he was around, he'd make something of it. He was just a happy kid. Well, he says, these two are two extremes. I've got to temper them. The pessimist has to become more optimistic, and the optimist has to become more pessimistic. He said, what I'm going to do is put the pessimist in his room. No, he put the optimist in his pessimist in the room first, in his room, and he filled it with everything that was ideal. He really couldn't find any fault with it. His books were nice, his toys were nice, everything was nice. And he says, what am I going to do with the optimist? He says, I've got to discourage him. He said, I think I'm going to put him in his room with manure. Well, the father, got a little impatient, and he could only let them in there for an hour. And he then looked into his pessimist's room, and he wasn't doing anything. He says, I don't like these toys. And I don't even like the color. And really, I'm very unhappy about this whole thing, and I can't wait to have it over with so I can have some lunch. He says, that didn't work. So he looked into his optimist's room, and here the little guy was digging. He was digging. Oh, and he was smiling and digging. And his father says, what are you doing? He said, with all this manure, there must be a pony somewhere. So, when you paint, that's how your attitude has to be. It has to be, you're looking for the pony. If all you do is criticize what you do, you never finish it because you're so discouraged. You have to accept it. I couldn't do these programs if I weren't looking for a pony. Because I know that my paintings are suffering under the hot lights of the theater. I mean, I can't paint now the way I know I can paint. But I'm not here to paint. I'm here to teach. To teach you the things that I think are terribly important. The things that guide me to be able to paint. Well, here this rind, this is the part that's coming out. And it's the white part. Then the yellow part shows. Then the white part shows again. These applications were done not by drawing them, but by understanding what happens to the rind if it's swirled. And then this comes down here. And then we have the little cup and then the shadow. This is in shadow. Of course, this will show up much better if I put the tone value that it's supposed to be against. Here, it's against a dark tone. And a darker tone, even this, which is underneath the table. Really, painting is so much fun. You're doing something that's never been, you're doing a painting that you've never done before. It's always a wonderful kind of a surprise. And you should think about it that way too. Don't have such a rigid picture of what it has to be. Accept what it can be. I said I was going to put that on a tray, and I've just decided not to. Why? Because I'm running out of time. So I have to find an easier solution. I'm just going to make a lighter table, the tabletop. This will look much better if I go down. For some reason or other, it looks as though the wood goes down. And then I'll fix this way going across. Well, this surely takes up space and has some weight, and so it casts a shadow. So we learn about cast shadows. And by knowing about the cast shadow, we make things look plausible. That's what the painter does. He's always shaping in cast shadows or body tones, or highlights. Has that anything to do with drawing? No. And so you can see how the drawing of the subject comes as a result of painting it. This looks so cold. Got to put some warm color in there. You know how I like the warmth. I hope you learned something valuable today, and the next time we meet, I'll teach you how to make soup. Hello, I'm Helen Van Wyk, and welcome to my studio. We've been exploring how important and how powerful the painting principles are. They are so reliable and powerful that really you don't even have to see a subject. Seeing the subject does make the picture have an intimate look, but really when I paint, I apply what I know to what I see, to give the picture some sensibility. If I only paint what I see, maybe it's going to be shallow. So I'm going to paint this tray. By the way, I bought this tray when I was about 12 years old, my first antique. It's been a wonderful friend to me all these years. I'm going to paint this without looking at it, so that I can show you that the principles will paint the essence of it rather than the way it looks. Well, the essence of it is that it is concave. If I feel it, feel your subjects before you paint them. Be careful whom you feel, though. This is concave, so I have to get that look. Then I feel it and it's round, and I have to get that look. So I'm going to rely on rhythm of application, which is one of the components of the painting process. I'm going to use that to make this concave, round look. Okay. I have things all sketched in with white chalk. By the way, if you like to, I like to work on a gray canvas because it's easier to apply my color. And then working on a gray canvas gives me a chance to use white chalk to see where I'm going to establish the composition. And it doesn't interfere with your paint at all, whereas charcoal does, because it's a coal tar product and it's not really compatible with oil, whereas white chalk is like pastel, which is little pigments, little, white pigments, just pushed, squeezed together. And I think before I even start on the tray, I better put the background in to show it off. So I'm going to use a dark hot color. Indian red and black, by the way, is a wonderful way to make a nice hard, dark color. Dark hot color. Just bear with me while I put this in. Don't use this rhythm of application. This is just expediting something for me to then show you. This is really too thin. I have a race against time showing you my painting importances, the things that I think are important to know. But actually, when I'm painting in my studio, I have a race with time too. I hate to take forever on a painting. That means I'm doing it inefficiently. When you think of the magnitude of what the old masters did, Rubens alone. So now, first of all, this is going to be brass. So why don't I take it step by step and start this off with a general overall brass color. What color is brass? Well, it's bright, but it's not the color of a lemon, and so I'm going to use a bright yellow and try to kill that yellow, because now it looks like a lemon. It would certainly not look like brass. So I'm going to darken it with a darker yellow, burnt umber, and I'm getting sort of a mustardy color, which is more brass-like. Yeah, it looks pretty round. It comes from years of drinking. Okay. How can I make that look like it's indented? Well, I can take that color again, thicken it, and say, I want you to be indented. And make my strokes all dig into it. Now, because the light is coming from the left, always important that you are conscious of the lighting, because lighting is the wonderful opportunity that lets you paint, because it lets you see. So you can see what you're doing. If the lights are out, you suddenly don't have the gift of painting, because you can't see what you're doing. Now, with the light coming from the left, and we're accustomed to seeing light come from one source anyway, because this planet is stuck with one sun. Now, the light is coming down this way, hitting here, and it can't hit here. So I'm going to darken that, and I'm going to take black and white and alizarin crimson and make a gelky violet. And I'm going to use that to paint in the shadow. Not expecting too much of the shadow, its effect, but putting it in, leaving a little bit of space for the rim. Always using a stroke that digs in. Maybe I need another brush. And back to the other color to fuse this with this. Oh, it's starting to concave over there. Then metals rely so much on highlights. You have to really know about highlights to paint metals. Highlights hit where the subject is right in line with the light. And if the light is coming this way, it hits here. Trying to make it look concave. The highlight would also hit very hard right up here. Very tempting to put it on that way, but you don't pile enough paint on. that way because you're not piling enough paint. You're not getting the brightness of the mixture. Much better to spoon feed your picture with paint rather than stroke it in. And here I'm going to cut that down. Brushwork. This stays darker here. Why don't I put something I always need to show the dimension of a subject, and that is I've got to employ a cast shadow over here. Has nothing to do with the concavity of that, but anyway, I need it. If I need it and I want it. That's the nice thing about painting. If you need it, you want it, you can get it. Just have to dare to do so. Well, there's usually some other things influencing this, other colors influencing the light side, where the light is striking. Lighter. And actually, a shadow is not always just that purpley, funny color. The color of the object starts to be visible again in here, and very often lighter because this reflects up into it, stopping that from looking like such a void area. Now, because I have all the strokes digging in, I now am at a time that I have a tendency, a passion, to go the other way. We talk about balance in painting. Why? Because our world is in balance, and so paintings have to look as though they're in balance. So how do I balance strokes that are this way? I balance them this way. So I have left the final look of the brass concave tray to my final strokes. So now I have a tendency to want to go around. And there was some decoration or some grooves in that. And this stroking will show because it hasn't been used yet. I don't like the fact that it's so void of other color. I'm going to introduce some red up here, and you'll see why later on. Then, I'd like you to take a look at the painting that I put on the easel. See how this is all smooth, all smoothed out. You have no idea how the brush strokes were worked. But actually, this whole picture was done the same as this. Exactly the same, but it was smoothed out later. So I'll show you how I use this big cosmetic brush to smooth out what I've done. Of course, as soon as you paint things very smoothly, you're asking for trouble because you're getting close to the way it really is. And then people get to be rather picky about how it looks. They say, I don't think I like that. If you leave it a little rough and painty looking, they'll accept it as a painting rather than as a record of the reality. It'll be more appreciated as an interpretation. So as soon as I see something not really looking right, I go back to the other way, digging out, and then smooth it in. Ah! I'm going to put a Chinese little vase here. And right in this space, I can show you that there's only 4 ways to paint, to apply paint. Oh, I don't know how many, but we can put it on this way, or we can put it on this way. We can put it on across or up and down. Now, a left-handed person has a tendency to put it on this way. A right-handed person has a tendency to do it this way. And this is neutral, across. So it's better to go both ways. If you have a tendency to do this, fix it opposite from the way you did it. If you put it on this way, fix it opposite from the way it is. So the rhythm of application doesn't rob the solidity of the subject. I want to just put in a mass tone. That you can do anyway, because that's just gets you started. Of course, I do like to always start a mass tone from the middle, not the edges, and have my brush encounter the edges, hoping that I get them even. A painter paints a picture, he doesn't draw it. And we can actually see shapes better if we get it all in a mass. But now I want to paint that thing. Didn't make it quite big enough in relation to this. Do you think so? Let's make it bigger. I like that better. That's where your eye comes in, your critical eye. You got to do it before you can see how it looks. So now, another way of manipulating your paint is to paint from the top down, or appreciate every element of the pictures, of the subject's essence. This has a thickness of material. It's crude porcelain. And I cut that down with the next tone down. It's the shadow. I can make that as thin as I want by cutting it down, and then I can fix that with the next tone down. Now we have a tendency to want to paint this way because that's its shape. No, I'm going to go opposite. Here this drops down a little bit. And downstrokes will make it look as though it drops down. Now this has I call it a shoulder. Not this way, but this way. And then it starts to flatten out. And it starts to drop down. And of course it has a shadow to make it look more round. Here, here, and here. After all, this is a shape, and this is a shape. Three-dimensional objects always have two planes at least. That you have to appreciate and administer. Now I can blend it all in opposite from the way I put it on. Blend it and then accentuate it again. On the blended in part, you can always accent it again. Roscoe used to say to me, Helen, you make it, you break it, and you make it again. That means you paint it, you break it, and then you accent it again. Put the highlight on in one way and accent it the other way. Well, I know that my time is almost up, but I wanted to put in something on the table to give you why I put red up there. I'm going to make a red table. Very Chinesey. Use more turpentine to make the paint spread. Of course, I need a cast shadow. And so I think I've shown you the direction of strokes, and next time I'll show you something else. Or I'll teach you how to make soup.